Rabbi Emanuel Feldman says an amazing story. He writes it in one of his books. He was invited to a university to give a class on Jewish ethics. And he decided what could be a better topic in Jewish ethics to discuss more than Emunah B'Tachon. So as he came into the lecture room in the university, it was a large-sized lecture of 100+ students. Rabbi Feldman turns to the classroom figuring, in any given university in America, you're likely to have a number of Jews. And he asked, who here in this room ever heard the word Emunah? And somewhere towards the back of the classroom, a student raised his hand. He said, Rabbi, I heard about Emunah. So he says, very good. What does Emunah mean? He says, complete and utter faith in God. So Rabbi Feldman said, that's a very good answer. Are you Jewish? And he says, yeah. And he continued to ask him, goes, did you go to a day school as a kid? And he said, He said, Hebrew school? So he said, so where do you know about Emunah? So he said, well, Rabbi, you see, me and my friend John, right next to me over here, in the summer we took a road trip and we went to Tennessee. And we were sitting in a club one night, and a diner, and some waitress came over to take our order. And you see here, Rabbi, and he picked up his Magen David necklace, and he said, you see here, I'm wearing a necklace with a Magen David that I got from my grandfather. And so this waitress looks at it and she says, hey man, ain't that a Magen David? And I said, yeah, it sure is. She goes, that means you're Jewish, huh? He says, yeah, I am. She says, well, let me show you something. And she pulled up her sleeve, and tattooed on her arm was E-M-U-N-A. I said, okay, what's that? He goes, hey man, I thought you said you're Jewish. I said, yeah, I am, but what does that mean? What does that have to do with being Jewish? He goes, can't you read? That's Emunah. I'm like, okay, what is that? Because Emunah is complete and utter faith in God. So, okay, but in Hebrew, man. So, okay, so how did that end up tattooed on your arm? He says, well, I'll tell you something here. You know, this here diner, it belonged to a Jew boy, to a Jew. His name is Mr. Weinstein. And you see, I was in a relationship with a boy. He was rich. And he had lots of money. And he bought me a car. And we were going to get married. And one day, my boy just upped and out on me. And I was down. I was really down. And I came over here to work. And Mr. Weinstein, well, he came in here and he took one look at me and goes, hey, Doreen, what's wrong with you, girl? I said, can't you see I'm down? My boy just up and out on me. And he said, Doreen, I have just the book for you. And he handed me this book. It was called In the Garden of Emunah. Well, he's my boss, so I said thank you. And I took it, but I didn't think I was going to read it. I came home and didn't have anything else to do, so I pulled out the book and I started reading the book. And I said, hey man, this rabbi, he's crazy. He ain't know nothing what he's talking about. And then, right as I was thinking that, my girlfriend, Therese, she called me up and she says, hey Doreen, You're lucky your boy just up and out on you. That man, you thought he was a lawyer. He ain't no lawyer. He needs a lawyer. So what do you mean, Therese? What are you talking about? And she tells me, Doreen ain't been watching the news. They just arrested him, the cops. The man, he's a sham. He's a crook. And I thought to myself, hey, Doreen, you know, maybe this rabbi does know what he's talking about. Maybe there's something about this emunah. And I went down to the tattoo studio here in town, and I told him, you're going to tattoo right now, right over here, Emuna, E-M-U-N-A. Great story. And Rabbi Feldman thought it was a great story too. It has a lot of lessons to be learned from it. And the simplest lesson is what I think most people would take from the story, what Rabbi Feldman probably took from the story, and that's that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to come to every Jew wherever he is. But you know what's an even more amazing lesson in this story? Let's take a step back. Rabbi Feldman is a Talmud of Ner Yisrael, a rabbi in a typical Ashkenazi American shul, out of town. In the Garden of Emunah, it's written by Begana Emunah, by Rabbi Arush, a Sephardi Breslover, Sephardi Israeli Breslover, and translated to English. And these two boys that ended up in Memphis, Tennessee, were boys almost totally lost to Yiddishkeit due to the American melting pot of assimilation. But this story brings together so many different elements of the Jewish people. In this week's Sedra, in Bamidbar, the Torah tells us again about counting Am Yisrael for yet another time. And you see, when you count, you do something incredible. You separate each and every individual, turning them into an individual number. Yet a number is part of a bigger whole. It's part of a sequence. There's a before, there's an after, there's patterns involved. When you count Am Yisrael, there's special ways of doing it. Shelo yeh bohem negev, because you're separating them in one way by turning each one into a number. On the other hand, you're taking away from them their identity. And it's counted by a machatzis, a shekel. It's counted in some sort of other form. Shelo yeh bohem negev b'fgoydo yisam. There shouldn't be a plague when they're counted. And when there's a plague, what do? Lech ami b'chadorecha. We separate. We don't stay in that whole unit. Plague divides. And if we divide, we allow a plague to be. All of Am Yisrael is a miksha achas. They can be so different and so individual, yet they're one unit. And that's the lesson of being needing to be careful, not to count Am Yisrael, and not to turn Am Yisrael into individuals, but to always be collective. That we use a machatzis, a shekel, being a half and being a part. Because we're part of a bigger picture, we have our individuality. All sorts of different types of Jews, all across the gamut. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu cares for all of us because we're banim. We're his children. We're His family. We're all part of Hashem's family. That's the idea of Maimon Har Sinai. Ki ish echad b'lev echad. Why it was so crucial to give the giving of the Torah, that we should all be together. We can be so different, but we're all together. Well, why is that crucial? The Torah is a Torah's chayim. It's a living, it's a vibrant Torah. There's a musig, there's a concept in Chazal of elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim, that the different opinions are both right. Sometimes you have to ask yourself, how can it possibly be? It's impossible. The Medrash tells us there's different opinions by Basya, by Bas Pari, that when she took Moshe Rabbeinu out of the water, whether it means her arm, and that her arm that thus grew, and that's what the Medrash is telling us, it got longer, so she should be able to pull out Moshe Rabbeinu from further out in the Nile, or whether it means she sent her maidservant. How could both of those be true? Either she used her arm or she used the maidservant. Was Parai a midget or he wasn't? Was Moshe Rabbeinu a giant or he wasn't? Sometimes things have to be factual. How could it all be true? But the Torah is much greater than that. It's not defined in truths in the simple form of the way we view it. That's because we can't understand things that are greater than that. The Torah is vibrant. If there's a way to understand it as part of the integral Torah's chayim, it's true. It becomes part of the Torah, and you can have different days sometimes. You can have a Breslov way of looking at something, and you can have a Chabad way of looking at something, and you can have a Litvish way of looking at something. And somehow, as different as they are, they can all be appreciated as a truth, even if they can't all somehow seemingly be true together. Because the Torah is greater than human intellect. It's something that's vibrant, and it's something that's there for all of us. And as we come together, the Torah can come together. And Be'ez Hashem, when we become that Miksha Achas again, we can have all of Am Yisrael re-accept the Torah the way the Rebbeinu Shalom wants the Torah to be accepted. The two elements to be mechazikin is the Messiah, is the tradition of halacha, which keeps the Torah together, how Jews from all over the world come back to Eretz Yisrael, whether it's Teimanim, Sfardim, Ashkenazim, Hasidim, Litvish. Everybody comes back here to Eretz Yisrael, during this whole epidemic, this whole pandemic. Davened here in a minyan with my neighbors. Some of them were Sfardim, some of them davened Nusach Ashkenaz, some Nusach Sfard, some Nusach Ari. But we had a minyan together. We all came together. The differences in the Nuschais are minute. This is Kibbutz Goyos, we see it. Why? Because the Messiah was kept alive. So it allowed for those differences of opinions to be there, yet because it was all mitzumtzum, it was all came back down again, individual but whole. Things stayed very similar, and it didn't spread too vastly apart. We have to mechazik ourselves in the Messiah on the one hand, and on the other hand, in achdus, in unity. And Be'ez Hashem, we should be zeicha this Kabbalas HaTorah to have a different Kabbalas HaTorah through Messiah and achdus. Good Shabbos.